सदफ सदफ
यस सर, क्या हो गया? क्या तकलीफ है आज?
हम मैसूर गए थे लास्ट वीक, और
हाँ,
जिसने नहीं सुना उसके बारे में तो वो जाके सुन लीजिए। तो आज कहाँ जा रहे हैं हम? आज ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं या घर पे बैठ रहे हैं?
नहीं नहीं, आज हम बिल्कुल बन ठन के आए हैं, बिल्कुल ऐसे मिकी माउस का टी शर्ट, जो लोग यूट्यूब पे देख रहे हैं हमें, तो हम बिल्कुल बन ठन के आज एक काम करते हैं। मैसूर थोड़ी अच्छी जगह है, वहाँ अच्छी जगह से दूसरी अच्छी जगह चलते हैं, पहाड़ों पे चलते हैं, और वाया मुंबई, लाइक मुंबई से पहाड़ पर।
मुंबई से पहाड़ मतलब आई होप इट्स नॉट लोनावला खंडाला वाले पहाड़, बिकॉज दे आर नॉट लाइक प्रॉपर पहाड़, यू नो, दे टू लो टू बी एक्चुअल पहाड़। सो आर वी गोइंग टू
नो नो,
प्रॉपर पहाड़?
हम प्रॉपर टूरिस्ट ही करेंगे, टूरिस्ट स्पॉट जाएंगे बिल्कुल, जहाँ बिल्कुल ऑलमोस्ट नॉर्थ के सारे लोग तो पगला पगला के वहीं पहुंच जाते हैं। जब तक मतलब वीकेंड हुआ नहीं कि अरे चलो 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 बाबा का आशीर्वाद लेने चलते हैं पहाड़ों पर, तो हम चलेंगे उत्तराखंड। और उत्तराखंड हम अकेले नहीं जाएंगे, और चल मिल मिला के आते हैं लोगों से। तो वी हैव रुशीना, एंड रुशीना विल मेक अस ट्रैवल टू उत्तराखंड. Everybody knows Rushina, and for people who does not know Rushina, you should just jump off the balcony, and that's about it. दो चार बार कूदना चाहिए, एक बार नहीं, दो चार बार. Rushina is a culinary expert. She's a writer, she's a consultant, she's an author. She does history of food, stories of people, ingredients. She also has something called APB Cook Studio, which is the full form is A Perfect Bite Consulting. And my officials and unofficial mentor, food mentor. Often, मतलब ऐसे मैंने mentor बना लिया है, officially, unofficially, रुशीना को, even if she knows or doesn't, पता नहीं. So, with that long बकवास of mine, रुशीना, welcome to नान करी, जहां हम नान करी आपको भेजने वाले हैं पहाड़ों पर.
Absolutely looking forward to that, and very, very happy to be here.
So, quick question before we get into a lot of things. And I said कि पहाड़, मुंबई से पहाड़ जा रहे हैं, तो now जितना थोड़ा बहुत मुझे पता है, you आप मुंबई. So how does this Mumbai and पहाड़ Uttarakhand got mixed in together?
So romance happened. I got married to a Pahadi. So you know how life is, right? You start in one direction and you end up in a completely different direction. So this is 25 years almost now ago. Wow. That I was studying in Hyderabad. I was studying animation in Hyderabad, which is where one of my course mates was my now husband. At that time, he was just a course mate. But we were studying together, and we were both studying animation at that point. Was a very interesting romance. I won't get into the details, but the story started in Hyderabad. Then we moved to Bombay, lived in Bombay for a while. Beach mein Chandigarh jaake aaye. We stayed in Chandigarh for a year or two. And then it's been Bombay ever since. So we live in Bombay, but as far as my food writing career is concerned, it all started with an essay I did on Pahadi food, or on the food of Uttarakhand. Wow. And that has been one constant thread through my life. So because I married him, you know how it is, you traditionally get married, and especially when you come from another community, you try to figure out the food that your husband likes or your spouse likes. In your case, it's probably going to be your wife's Sadaf. In my case, I was figuring out what my husband would like to eat. Yeah. So
Sadaf.
अरे वो तो लाइन लगा रखी है उसके लिए, बस he has to just
अभी दिल्ली दूध है. दिल्ली से मतलब अर्चित, you know what is दूध है, ऑफिशियली नहीं बोल सकते ये चीज. हाँ.
So basically जब मेरी नई शादी हुई थी, मुझे कुछ नहीं पता था. I didn't even at that point know that, or you know, sort of imagine that the food in my husband's house would be different from what we ate. Like, I grew up in a Gujarati house, and I came here, and from day one, I realized that it's going to be very different. So then, you know, you want to cook for your husband. So I tried to figure out, you know, typical city, Bombay girl, cookbook hai ki nahi? So cookbook to non-existent. In fact, Uttarakhand at that point, when I got married, had just become a state in its own right. So the cultural identity of this state has it's still just about coming into its own. It's taken this long for people to start taking pride in a whole bunch of different aspects of Uttarakhand culture as well as cuisine. And at that time, there was no documentation about anything when it came to Garhwali or Uttarakhand food. So I was spending a lot of time with my mom-in-law and people here. So I started writing down recipes, teaching myself stuff, and then I was naturally inclined to writing. So I put together a small research project, and I did this little essay, which I put up on a food website. At that point, it was called egullet.com, and it was something I discovered when I was just sort of surfing the internet. But it was a place where there was a lot of food discussion happening, and a lot of the prominent food personalities we have today around the globe, Simon Majumdar, Monica Bhide, Suvir Saran, these people were present on that forum. Vikas Khanna was there. I'm talking like 20 odd years ago. And I did this essay. I'd never really done anything on food, but it got a lot of attention, and a lot of people say, do a book on Uttarakhand food. So तब से मेरा ये book का journey चल रहा है. अभी तक वो print नहीं हुई है. This coming year, I am going to self-publish a book on Uttarakhand.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it's worked out really well, because during this pandemic, being here, because of the lockdown last year, we decided to temporarily relocate to our home in Dehradun. Because we figured if we're going to be locked in anyways, we might as well be locked in here, where we have, locked in here means we have a bungalow, we have a garden, we have a kitchen garden, and there's a lot more space.
Yeah.
So that was that plan. But after coming here, I realized it was such a good move, because as someone who's documenting the cuisine, until now, we used to come for 10, 15 days and go back. This time, I spent a year. We'll finish a year this October here. I've never been here for this long. And that's allowed me to be here throughout the cycle of festivities, of, the food preservation calendar, everything, which before I had ज्ञान था, लिखा हुआ था, but hands on नहीं किया था. So इस साल में हमने सब कुछ किया है. बड़ियाँ बनाई हैं, पिकल्स बनाए हैं, कच्चे कटहल को पता नहीं कितने कटहल काटे हैं और पकाए हैं. And every vegetable that's come on, I've discovered vegetables that after 20 years of covering the food I hadn't known about, because we were not here in the season. Yeah. So that's the overall. I think I've just gone on a little bit about.
In general, now I have working in restaurants and all, I have always noticed that chefs, at least in India or maybe north part of India, people prefer a Pahadi chef because they really cook amazing food. I thought that's why you got married to a Pahadi as well.
So here's a secret.
अच्छा खाने को मिलेगा. लेकिन
here's a secret. I learned how to cook after I met my husband.
Lordy.
So I learned how to make dal rice from him. उसके पहले I grew up very spoiled in my father's house. तो Sundays को हमारे घर में actually गुजराती house था, महाराज होता था kitchen में. तो खाना used to be made by him, and Maharaj is a Brahmin, so you can't go in the kitchen when they're cooking and all that stuff. They're very particular about things like that. So Sundays को महाराज की छुट्टी होती थी, तो उस दिन पापा मुझे बोलते थे, तो मैं कुछ fancy casserole, soup, pasta ऐसी चीजें बनाती थी. But I never learned how to make घर का खाना, not Gujarati घर का खाना, not any other घर का खाना. So after I met Shekhar is when, which is good, because in a sense I picked up how he liked his food. So I picked up the Garhwali style of cooking. It was like a full circle that I sort of discovered Garhwali cuisine and then went back to rediscover Gujarati cuisine as a food writer.
गुज्जू छे समझा तू अर्चित तू हमजा ने गुज्जू छे. अभी तारक मेहता का उल्टा चश्मा मत लगा देना.
You sound like Shekhar. The only thing that he knows how to say in Gujarati is "Mane Gujarati nathi avadtu."
Mane bhi nathi avadtu.
Acha, I have a question. So when we're talking about Pahadi cuisine, जब हम ये term Pahadi use करते हैं, are we referring to collectively all the cuisine of say Himachal, Uttarakhand, or are we referring to just say Garhwal, Kumaon, or Uttarakhand के जो पहाड़ का?
So overall, Pahadi cuisine does refer to the high mountain cuisines, and Pahadi, like it. The Kashmiris also call them, well, not Kashmiris, but Himachalis do call themselves also Pahadis. And then as you go that side, Arunachal maybe people call themselves Pahadi. So the Pahadi cuisine is a generic term. But when we are talking in context to me, we are talking about the food of Uttarakhand.
Okay.
And here in Uttarakhand, people call themselves Pahadis. And it's Pahadi log, Pahadi khana, Pahadi rehan-sehn, all of that.
Okay, so for the purposes of this conversation, Pahadi we'll refer to as Uttarakhand khana. And you mentioned vegetables that you discovered recently. Oh, that reminds me, one feature of food whenever a city boy like me travels to the hills is जो सब्जियां होती हैं, they're so fresh, they're so crunchy. It just, you can't compare them with the vegetables you get. For example, the gobi is just, it has another dimension when you eat it in say Uttarakhand ka koi dhaba ya in Himachal ka koi dhaba. So why is that the case? And does that mean that Pahadis are only vegetarians because you get such beautiful vegetables there?
No. So two parts to this. And it actually ties into the whole ethos of Pahadi culinary culture. So Pahadis are extremely connected to the earth. They love to grow. आप कहीं पे भी पहाड़ी को, even Bombay में एक apartment में, I'm a pseudo Pahadi because I'm married to one, so I don't count. I can't keep anything alive. But any Pahadi anywhere will have one little kitchen garden, balcony garden. Something will be growing, one kaddu ka bel. They will always have their own little thing happening for where they're growing some level of vegetables. They're extremely proud of घर की चीजें, whether it's घर का घी, घर की सब्जियां, and ultimate form of प्यार is कि आप किसी पहाड़ी के घर जाओ, you will be served the best that they can offer, and the best that they can offer is what has been grown at home. So so from that perspective, everything tastes so good because the taste is in the food. We have very simple cooking preparations. हमारे ज़्यादा मसाले नहीं होते हैं. It's not complicated, layered cooking. It's very simple. Typically 5 से 7 ingredients में एक dish बन जाती है. हाथ भर के 3-4 मसाले होते हैं जो are used on a daily basis, and the flavor in the food comes from the ingredients, which is why I realized this year while I've been here, I used to do a lot of pop-ups in Bombay. I've also carried a lot of stuff from here to the pop-ups because fresh vegetables, I can substitute a kaddu from Bombay into a kaddu ka raita, but it will not taste the same as Pahadi kaddu, which is why, I feel it's as Indians, especially because just now we are all in a sort of discovering India sort of mode. We are trying to travel across the country. We've been sitting at home and reading and seeing all kinds of things. We want to go and try them out. I think we need to travel to taste, because a lot of cases, not just Uttarakhand, wherever we go, we will find the local food taste different in its ecosystem as opposed to you trying to cook it somewhere else. As far as the vegetarian aspect is concerned, we are not typically vegetarian. There are regions of Uttarakhand which are actually primarily non-vegetarian. Like if you go up towards the Tons Valley, the primary diet is a lot of meat. But we're just finding out about Uttarakhand cuisine. So largely, if you think about it, Uttarakhand cuisine divides into Kumaoni and Garhwali. It was actually 2 distinct regions that were put together into Uttarakhand when the political map was made. Now, till now, a lot of conversations, even from me, have been around these 2 prominent cuisine branches, which is Kumaoni and Garhwali. But what I've realized in the last couple of years, especially in this last year of being here, is that within Uttarakhand, we have a lot of micro regions. So the Tons Valley is a micro region. It's cut off from other parts. And because we have these micro regions, we have micro cuisines that draw on what is grown in that region. So like the Tons Valley, besides being a besides having prominent meat dishes, also grows like almost 7-8 varieties of rajma. Uttarakhand has more dal varieties growing here than any other regional cuisine of India. We also eat more dal in more ways, on more occasions than any other regional cuisine. So our primary source of protein is dal.
Okay.
We do eat meat. So winters mein meat bhat is something that we look forward to. But we don't have elaborate meat preparations. So we don't have like a repertoire of kormas and kaliyas and, sukkas and rasas and stuff like that. There is, because remember, we come from tribal origins. Okay. So animal used to come, if you, at the time when hunting hota tha, to shikar pe jate the, shikar se jo aata tha, the whole animal would get used. So when you go back in history and you look at it, you would have ki this then the carcass comes home. The best bits would be cooked into a curry. Then some parts of it would be made into achar, so that you could keep it for longer. And then we have in Uttarakhand, we have all parts of the animal. So towel ka mutton banta tha, means the stomach lining would get cooked into a curry of its own kind. All offal would get cooked into a curry. We also have a blood sausage. So the blood would also be, mixed with cereals and everything and cooked and made into a sausage. That is something, or a version of blood sausage, and that is something prevalent as well. It's just that some of these things now, as time has gone by, when it's easier to get the cuts of mutton you want, you don't have to buy the whole animal. So then the meat bhat has become very prevalent. So ek shikar ka meat hota hai, which is like a dry dish. Ek mutton ka jhol bol sakte ho. Jhol is gravy here in Uttarakhand. So mutton ka jhol hoga, chicken ka jhol hoga. Chicken came much later in life. It wasn't something that there are very few recipes recorded around chicken. Traditionally, chicken was not cooked. Mutton was cooked, or mutton could be any wild mutton. So of course, we eat a lot of goat meat, but traditionally, again, remember, tribal origins. So I found accounts in old sort of records and stuff like that of everything from porcupine to all kinds of things being eaten. I'm sure it's still prevalent in some parts. We obviously, when we talk just now about Uttarakhand food, it's a caricature because, like I said, the state is still sort of coming into its own as far as its identity is concerned.
Nice.
Sorry, बहुत heavy हो गया.
नहीं, मैं तो ज़्यादा पूछने वाला था अभी तो.
Okay.
So interestingly, because you mentioned about it being really simple, and here's the problem with me at least. When people say simple, I don't understand simple. ठीक है, because हमारे यहाँ तो elaborate है हर चीज. Like जब तक कलियां यूजुअली नहीं बनती है तो कोरमा हेवी लोडेड कोरमा ना बने, दही वही ना जाए, बिल्कुल जब जमाओ तो सतह पे बिल्कुल चमड़ी नहीं फैट जम जाना चाहिए. That's what we do, and towards the end गरम मसाला जरूरी है. But when you're saying the meat is really simple, या फिर सब्जियां simple है, तो and the question is also because you do the spice chronicle as well, right? So what would be the 5 basic spice, like a 5 spice of Pahad of Uttarakhand, which is like an absolute when you're making mutton?
Well, actually the mutton doesn't have any of the traditional spices. So we have a repertoire of traditional spices. We have, do you want me to start with the spices or talk about the mutton? Two directions. So to answer, let's start with the spices because that's going to give you an overview. So Now, going to take you slightly back. थोड़ा सा history, geography पढ़ा लेती हूँ तुमको साथ साथ. So if you look at the map, the political borders of Uttarakhand only came into being about 20-25 years ago. Prior to that, 21 years I think it is. But prior to that, Uttarakhand was part of larger Uttar Pradesh. So politically, it was not really recognized. Whoops. Okay.
क्या गिर गया? घर में भूचाल आ गए क्या? बिल्ली बिल्ली. खैर, continue. हाँ, so from the same politically.
Yeah. So politically, we were part of a larger UP, and not really, we didn't have a recognition of our own. Geographically also, it's a pretty cut-off region. So the entire cuisine has evolved to use whatever was available locally. So we have the same concepts that we have across different parts of the region, across different parts of the country also. Like dal bhat khate hain, tadka lagta hai, but hamari spices alag hain because we use spices that grow locally. So if I had to give you 5 prominent spices, or if I had to use spices to give you an idea of flavor profile. So we have the primary tadka spice. Okay, there are 3 of them. There is bhang and bhang jeera, which are prevalent more in Kumaoni cuisine. And then we have something called jakhia or wild mustard, which is prevalent more on this side in Garhwali cuisine. This is what we use for our sabzi ka tadkas. Bhang, which is hemp seed, is also used in other ways. We'll come back to that. I won't get into the details on that. Now, besides these 3 prominent spices, we also use something called jambu, which has come to us from the Nepal connect. Down from we share a border with Nepal. We have a lot of Nepali history. We've been rolled over by Nepalis for a long time. And so obviously there's been an exchange of culinary ingredients and practices as well. So jambu came to us from there. And while in Nepal it is used across the board in many ways, here jambu is used only specifically in tadkas for dal in Garhwal side. In Kumaon side, it's used in sabzis and things like that as well. Now, besides these 4, we have one more thing which is called gandherni or choru. Okay, choru is what you might recognize it as because the folks at Tons Valley sell a choru namak with the rajma.
Yeah.
This gandherni is basically a local root and a root/bark. It comes from a specific plant. And that is what we use with a lot of our rajma and badi jo khadi dalein, jo heavy dalein hoti hai, unme dalta hai. So it helps you with digestion because remember, hing came from Afghanistan. Yeah. So things like hing, jeera, they didn't grow locally. And because they didn't grow locally, we adapted other things to our cooking. So for example, jakhia literally grows on fallow land. It's not cultivated. आप चलते फिरते आपको एक खेत मिलेगा जहाँ पे कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, वहाँ पे jakhia is gone wild. It's called wild or dog mustard. Has nothing to do with the mustard family in terms of flavor.
Or dog.
So, or a dog.
Or dog.
Very important to mention.
Very important.
I forgot who I was talking to. So yes, these are the spices. Besides this, every day we would use whole chilies, which we have a local version of. It's a chota sa spicy, killer spicy chili, which there is a hybrid version which is prevalent. And there's also an indigenous to Uttarakhand chili called the Lakhori chili, which grows in the salt region of Uttarakhand. And then we have garlic. So if I had to just simply tell you, your dal ka tadkas would be in ghee. They would have hing, jeera, lasan, maybe the akha mirchis, and jambu. doesn't necessarily have to be all these spices, but this is in some combination permutation. This would be your dal ka tadka. In your sabut dale, badi dale, then your gandheri will come into urad and rajma and stuff like that. And as far as sabzis are concerned, regular sabzis would typically be given a chokka, or most sabzis are chopped in mustard oil. It's a huge part of the flavor profile. And then depending on which part of Uttarakhand you're in, the tadka would be given with lasan, akha mirchis, which we call bhuni mirchi. Basically, jitna spicy chahiye utna, us hisab se aap chilies ko ya to oil mein fry karke rehne do, so they'll break down as you cook, or you pull it out and the oil is got flavored with the chili. And you would either use bhang/bhang jeera if you were doing Kumaoni side food, or jakhya if you were doing Garhwali side food. That doesn't mean that we don't use the others as well. Like, we also use bhang, but our prevalence is towards jakhya. And honestly, at the moment, it's also home to home and preference of the cook.
Wow.
So
that's a lot of spices that a lot, and yet they were like, I think I have had jakhya, I have had jambu as well, and people who haven't tried it, it really adds such nice flavor to dal. Mostly I've had in dal, nothing else.
So currently I've got fresh jambu in the garden.
Oh, lovely. You mentioned bhang as well, and we've done an episode on bhang, so if listeners want to check that out, you can. But, typically bhang is known to most of India as an intoxicant. So let's talk about how bhang is used as food in Uttarakhand, and I know the bhang ke pakode as well. So tell us something about that.
Okay, so first of all,
क्या गाली गलौज चल रहा है भांग के पकौड़े?
I don't know what that means.
तू भांग के पकौड़े.
Do you want to explain that, Sadaf?
नहीं.
It's too dangerous.
It's too dangerous.
Okay.
I think we can use that as
if you know, you know. If you know, you know.
Okay.
If people know भांग के पकौड़े.
Offline.
वो हमें बताते हैं, offline बताते हैं. Yes, back to bhang ke pakode.
Okay, so bhang ke pakode is, as far as I know, not something here. Okay, I think maybe the bhang leaves might be made into pakodes in some regions, but first of all, the bhang we use is the hemp seed. It is not what is made into afim and thandai and all that, the intoxicating stuff. Same family, but very different from that particular ingredient. And does not intoxicate. I get this question every time I say bhang. It's like, will I get high? No, you won't get high from eating bhang wale aloo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's very tasty, that bhang. So bhang ka seed. हाँ. और तुम्हें क्या और कुछ सोचता नहीं है लाइफ में? Like, seriously, there's life beyond intoxication. Be intoxicated with life, not with intoxicants. Yeah.
Lahol wala kuch Sadaf.
Lahol wala khubut. Lahol.
So this is just the mom and the mentor in me coming out. Live with it, Sadaf. No, but I'll tell you, this is a bit of a pet peeve, okay? Because we do this with everywhere. We need to find the most sensational thing about a cuisine. So whether it's the ants eaten in the Northeast, or here it's like, we need something really sexy to talk about Garhwali food. So we have to talk about bhang, we have to talk about stinging nettle, and make it sound like, oh my God. But you have to realize that this is regular food for people. It's just,
For the record, for other people who are listening, I have had bhang ke pakode and salt. It doesn't do anything. So just saying, if people are worried, नहीं, होली के टाइम खाया था भांग और खत्म हो गई थी कहानी, तो ऐसा कुछ होता नहीं है.
कुछ नहीं होता.
इससे ज्यादा नशा तो पोस्तों में होता है. Poppy seed have more nasha than bhang pakode or bhang ke namak.
No, and remember now, all these seeds, your bhang jeera, your posto, these are all winter seeds. They are eaten for their warming qualities. They're also very high. The bhang specifically is very high in protein, which is why if you see today it's sold as a superfood, right? Hemp seed is sold as a superfood. So it's very high in protein, and it was eaten over here. It's eaten in the winter to warm you up. So भांग की चटनी बनती है, भांग का नमक बनता है, भांग को हम लोग टोस्ट करके पाउडर करके वेरिड सब्जीज में यूज करते हैं. मूली की सब्जी में वो पाउडर डलता है, कद्दू की सब्जी में डलता है. It is a warming ingredient. It supplements the nutrition. Oil seeds are always really good to bring out the bioavailability and nutrition of a meal. And these are oil seeds. Bhang is an oil seed. It's pressed for oil. Til is a very big ingredient as well, although it's not a spice per se, but it's used as a it's again, so bhang is very prevalent, like I was saying, in Kumaon. तो वहां पे भांग की चटनी, भांग का नमक बनता है. इस तरफ तिल is a big deal. So in the winter we use a lot of til, which is toasted and ground into powder, made into chutney with this bada nimbu that we get in this season. Oh, one very nice dish that's made with bhang is the Kumaoni sana hua nimbu. It's basically like, if you like citrus, this is like citrus on steroids, because you have the Pahadi nimbu and other citrus fruit. We have a chakotra also that grows here. And in the winter in Kumaon, they'll get all this stuff together in a bowl. They'll put bhang ka namak and a bunch of other things, dahi, good, everything goes in there. And then you just like sit down and you eat this by the, like a chaat in the sun. When you're sitting in the sun, and it's literally citrus on steroids. Khatta, meetha, nutty from the bhang. I'm drooling.
And you could say it's also reasonably priced there because it's locally available, and it's good bhang for the buck.
Oh God! Okay, I thought Sadaf was one. I have two now.
So let's on that.
But just on a serious note, reasonably priced तो होता ही नहीं है. ये सब तो हमारे बगीचे में होता है, कोई खरीदने नहीं जाता.
पीछे जाता. बेसिकली रुशिना बोलती है, एक काम करो, जाओ भांग के जाओ और ले आओ. नींबू भांग के ले आओ. On that note, मौसम थोड़ा सा ठंडी होने लगी यहाँ पर और थोड़ा चटपटा भी आ गया. तो एक काम करते हैं, थोड़ा सा सस्ता वाला एक ब्रेक ले लेते हैं. तो ब्रेक के बाद हैं, because there are a lot of stuff on other side of the break. जाएं, ब्रेक लेके आए. एंड वेलकम बैक है जी. तो हमने सब भांग के मजे ले लिए, पकौड़े खा लिए, लेकिन लेट्स गो बैक टू मटन. रुशिना, सो यू वर थोड़ा सा हम डिटोर ले लिया था, हमने डीजेल हो गए थे. लेट्स कम बैक टू द मटन.
हाँ, तुम लोगों के केस में तो भांग की बात करके तुम लोग आए हो गए. लाइक
हमने 3-4 एपिसोड कर लिए, पता है, अल्कोहल और भांग के ऊपर ना 3-4 एपिसोड्स हैं हमारे. इसीलिए
यही हमारी कॉन्फिडेंस का सीक्रेट है.
अच्छा, आई थिंक आई बेटर सेंड यू गाइस सम भांग सीड्स फॉर न्यूट्रिशन. फॉर न्यूट्रिशन पर्पसेस.
हेल्दी लोग हैं हम लोग. So mutton.
Okay, so those are the spices we talked about. Now, traditionally, हमारे mutton dishes में ऐसा कुछ नहीं पड़ता है.
Oh.
That said, so the recipes that I have learned from the traditional perspective, there's a lot of bhunoing of the mutton, basic spices. We don't even put tomato. पापा वाली मटन करी जो मैंने सीखी है, जो हमारे घर में बनती है, उसमें तो टमाटर भी नहीं पड़ता. प्याज को बहुत सारा भून के डालते हैं, खड़े मसाले पड़ते हैं. You know, if you actually look at it in composition, it's very similar to a lot of traditional पुरानी घर की जो मटन करीज बनती थी. We call it मटन का झोल. वैसे एक चिकन का झोल भी बनता है. Now, in the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of discovery. People are now talking. Pahadis are talking about Pahadi food. अभी उसमें पहाड़ी के नाम में ना कुछ भी डल जाता है. तो कहीं आप देखोगे तो कोई चखिया डाल रहा है तड़के में, कहीं कुछ और हो रहा है. I am not saying that it's all authentic, because authenticity is a word I use very loosely. That said, I don't know how much of it is very localized to a specific family or a specific, few people who do it like that. But that said, I've also jumped onto that bandwagon. So I do a bhang wala mutton and a bhang wala chicken. which will go in my book, because I realized we needed more dishes from the perspective of when I do my pop-ups or, if I'm showcasing food somewhere. When you build a menu to sell, you need to give more options. So keeping that in mind, I've developed some recipes. We have one very interesting recipe, by the way. One very interesting meat dish. It's called kachmoli.
Kachmoli.
So, kachmoli, which basically means kacha pakka.
Achha.
Okay, and this is a whole goat which is roasted on a spit. Okay, on a green fire. So it's kept kacha pakka. So basically, it's what we call medium rare in English. Okay, so as it cooks, the meat is pulled off in strips. It's shredded. It's tossed with chili, hing, salt, and mustard oil. And then it's served up. And of course, the best bits are the bits where the skin and the meat is together. It's absolutely delicious. This comes to us from Nepal. And it was a very typical sacrificial sort of a thing at one point, where it was done away from home at a certain time of the year. Sacrifices were done in the forest, not in the home angan. I'm not clear totally on the rituals behind it, but today in our family, it's quite prevalent as a celebratory thing. It's only happened twice. Once when I got married, and once when we had our entire family over. My side of the family had come down. So typically शादियों में या जहाँ पे बहुत बड़ी gathering होती है, तब कचमौली बनती है. Although I've again figured out a more home level recipe that one can make.
You know what interesting I found that you said it also has hing in it, because most often than not, hing is not part of a non-veg food. You put onion in that usually, unless I think Kashmiris do use hing.
Kashmiri Pandit cuisine uses
Kashmiri Pandit, Pandit mein, I think they have hing, but mostly. So this is a very interesting thing that you are also adding hing in mutton. And there was another variation on chicken as well, or is it just a mutton thing?
This is only mutton. नहीं, और देखो, chicken was never prevalent. Chicken is, in my opinion, chicken is the aloo of the meat world.
True. It's also the most non-controversial. What's the word? I don't know what's the word. Uncontroversial, non-controversial.
Controversial. Small quantities में आसान होता है. एक chicken banana is easier than one whole goat.
Correct.
So
no, because I a couple of days back I was in Rampur, right, and then there I was told कि अरे chicken तो यहाँ पे तभी बनता है जब किसी का तबीयत खराब होगा. So like अच्छा तुम्हारी तबीयत खराब है, लो chicken खा लो. So it's considered as veg there.
Yeah. Like many cuisines consider chicken and even egg as vegetarian. Like जब कोई बीमार है तो अंडा का वो कर दो, soft boiled egg कर दो and stuff like that. जहाँ पे many other regions you would be like, अरे अंडा तो गरम होता है. It's hard to digest. You wouldn't serve it up as invalid food. So I think it's just purely from the perspective of various regional cuisines. But like I said, chicken was not prevalent. We didn't eat chicken like throughout my entire study of food. I have not found in Uttarakhand traditional chicken recipes. So
I think it's also very recent thing maybe, because often I also look at it, and then even now as well, when you have people coming over, you usually tend to make mutton, not necessarily chicken.
But also, Sadaf, in many regional cuisines, chicken was considered unclean. There are stories where it was cooked outside the house, not in the house kitchen. It was to that level considered unclean. It's only now, I think, in the last decade or so that there are a lot of people converting to eating meat. There are a lot of, contradictory health updates coming through. Ki red meat is bad for you, eat white meat. फिर बाद में white meat को chicken को पता नहीं क्या खिला देते हो, तो फिर बोलते हैं कि अच्छा chicken मत खाओ, इसमें पता नहीं क्या क्या डला हुआ है, meat खाओ. So all that is there, and that is changing our diets. But I will always be a fan of a really nice slow cooked mutton dish any day.
True, it's the best thing. Now,
from that is that a lot of research that comes about red meat is based on, say, sheep and beef, because it comes from typically United States or Europe, where goat is not eaten as much as it is in India. So that research actually is not about goat, and we often mistake it for goat, and goat is typically a healthier meat than beef and sheep.
That is there, Archit. And the other thing that I say is, देखो हम इंडिया में हैं, हम तरी वाला मटन चिकन खाते हैं, हम पूरा एक स्टेक नहीं खाते हर मील पे. आप दाल भात खाओ, I mean आप करी राइस खाओगे, आप नान करी खाओगे, 2 पीस मटन होगा, थोड़ा ग्रेवी होगा, थोड़ा एक नान होगी, थोड़ा राइस होगा, कुछ और चीजें होंगी. So even when you're eating red meat, how much are you actually consuming of the meat part of it? So we all need to question some of these things, because of those things you're not enjoying what you should enjoy. Like किस्मत में अच्छा खाना लिखा है तो क्यों उसको deny कर रहे हो?
क्यों जबरदस्ती का उसको बिल्कुल जान.
And Sadaf, you recently sent me kalia, which is typically a dish where not just meat is used, but a lot of vegetables are used as well together. So it's not, as Rushina rightly said, it's not like a steak जिसमें सिर्फ ही वो steak हो, साथ में सब्जियां भी use होती ही हैं.
Correct. And also depending on the weather, summers के type के vegetables and winters में winter. So like gobi gosht kaliyan will become a summer thing versus a shalgam gosht, chukandar gosht will become a winter thing. Yeah. Also, because you said, enjoyment, you know how much I love bread. I cannot not talk about bread. And also cheese. Do we have a local cheese in Uttarakhand or in Kumaoni area? Because I think if you go further up towards, like if you go to Darjeeling, you go to Assam and all those places, they do have another beautiful place. They do have amazing cheese coming in. Like one of them that I absolutely love is the chulpi, which is a soft chulpi, not the hard chulpi, soft chulpi. It stinks, but it's really nice. And something similar to what you mentioned about sabziyan, right? The last time I was in Darjeeling, which was 2019, I believe, or 18, I was having some vegetable, I don't remember. Again, similar to Uttarakhand, it was also grown in the backyard. They sort of plucked some fresh vegetables. Then there was also squash, which is a different kind of squash there. I think it's similar to Uttarakhand as well. And then it was cooked with almost absolutely nothing but 3 things. Garlic, salt. First garlic ka tadka, then sabzi. Then there was salt and chulpi cheese. That's it. And chulpi gave that really nice, tangy sort of flavor to your entire sabzi. So I'm curious that, do we have something similar in Uttarakhand as well? And of course, the bread. What kind of bread you usually have, apart from rotiyan full ka nahi?
So first of all, let's talk about the cheese. We do, I believe, I recently found out from Shubhra only, that we do have a pastoral community in the Upper Towns Valley that makes a kind of cheese. So a lot of pastoral communities that lived in the higher mountains, obviously you can't carry that much milk around, right? So they would transfer, sort of make the milk into cheese. So the kalari of Kashmir is Jammu ka kalari is a similar concept. I believe this cheese is similar. I haven't tried it. Achha. And then we do, by the way, now have a couple of cheese makers here in Uttarakhand as well who are doing modern cheese. I don't know whether you want to mention names, but we can if you want to.
Yeah.
So there is
modern cheese, a brand.
No, like cheese as we know it from the West.
Achha.
So there is Darima Darima Farms, who's doing some fantastic cheeses here in Kumaoni side. Now the breads. Okay, so everyday breads for us are basically Bhari Rotis. Okay, and these are a sibling of the paratha. So we have parathas also, we have Bhari Rotis also. Bhari Rotis are like stuffed to the gills with, it could be whatever is in season. So we have, usually winters is when we have Bhari Rotis, and they are stuffed with crushed dal. So gehat ki dal ki Bhari Roti banti hai. And my mom-in-law, by the way, is like a star when it comes to these things. So there's always some sort of filling or the other in the fridge. कोई भी घर आएगा, झटपट एक भरी रोटी बन जाएगी, उसमें आप छेद करो, अच्छे से घी डालो, let it melt into the filling, and then you eat it. You don't need anything else, बस ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा चाहिए तो फिर आपको हींग का अचार मिल जाएगा.
So हींग का अचार?
Yes, it's very delicious. Now, Bhari Rotis is a typical breakfast. Okay. Also, to go back a little bit again in history, our traditional grains were rice. And I'm not talking only Dehradun ka basmati rice, okay, which is what the region is famous for, but we also have a local red rice, unpolished rice, which is delicious. Yeah. Actually, several varieties of that. And then millets wise, we had two millets that were very important. One was mandwa, which is ragi. The other was jhangora, which is barnyard millet. So these were our primary forms. And then in some regions where corn grows, makka. So these were prominently what our breads were made out of. So mandwe ki roti is like any millet roti. You have to do small portions and do it by hand. Jaise aapki jawar, bajra, whatever it will be. And that typically your breakfasts would be these mandwe ki rotis and hari bhuji, which is like खेत से freshly greens काट के लाए, साफ किया, झके का तड़का दे दिया, उसको मंडवे की रोटी और winters में घी, summers में मक्खन के साथ खाया जाता है. That's your one kind of breakfast. Now we do also, it's absolutely delicious. You guys should come here and, I can give you a taste of all of this stuff. Winters में आ जाओ. I'm here till December. Bhari rotis or roti bhuji would be your breakfast. Okay. Now, mandwa is also made into something called a black and white roti. So after wheat became more prevalent, your mandwa is stuffed inside the atta and rolled out. And that's called a black and white roti. Very innovative name. So these are typical breads. And then, of course, you have the roti. The typical atte ka roti is very prevalent as well. We also have some very interesting breads that are made out of rice flour. So we have some, and then we have, so there's something called the Chol Roti, which is a batter, which is, it's reminiscent in a sense of the string hopper, I think. But where the string hopper is like drizzled onto the pan, here you use your hands and you just do a little pattern with that batter and it cooks into this jali type of thing. So chol roti can be that. Chol roti can also be a simple, thin crepe style pancake. Eaten with, again, we eat everything with white butter or ghee.
That's the best.
Oh, best absolutely. And I am fully of the belief that you should eat as much ghee and makhan as you can in your life. Kismat walo ko milta hai. So chol roti is like more like a pancake or a griddle crepe kind of a thing. Then we have some stuffed breads. Very charming names like ulva, and I mean, I barely remember. I have them all written down, but I don't remember all the names. But we have this one that's shaped like a gujia. It's maida on the outside, and then on the inside, it might, depending on where you are, it might have a filling of walnuts. Or it might have a filling of gehat, because savory. Walnut one is usually sweet. It might have a filling of til or bhang jeera even, or a mixture of some of these things. So it's like a substantial warming winter food. ऐसे several breads हैं. मुझे अभी नाम याद नहीं आ रहे, but we have these simple, different types of things. It's not a bread, but one of the most delicious snacks we have is something called a paturi. So paturi can be made out of anything that's in season. Basically, it's a dense, like makki ki paturi banti hai, hari sabji ki paturi banti hai, gehat ki dal ki paturi banti hai. It's like a coarsely crushed sort of it's a solid batter, semi-solid, coarsely crushed batter of dal or finely chopped greens with a bit of makki to bind it. And this is made into these chotu tawe pe, this is quickly fried up. This can be breakfast, it could be chai ka snack with hing ka achar, or in the winter, til ki chutney. And paturi is like phenomenal. It's simple, it's crisp because it's done freshly, it's freshly fried on the tawa. And often it's concentrated ingredients, so you get a taste of whatever the main ingredient is.
I am going to look it up and abhi weekend pe banega patudi.
Lovely. And
I have a video. I'll have a video. I'll share it with you.
Yes, please. That would be lovely. That would be even better.
Yeah, absolutely.
We at this podcast, Rushina, are huge fans of millet, and we usually say #make millets great again, because we want more people to eat millets, less people to eat maybe roti and roti made with wheat and ghee also. So those two things that you mentioned just warm my heart, and I'm really hungry now.
Ghee is the ultimate gift that you can be given if you come here, because we still make ghee the traditional way. Like हम लोग सिटी में बनाते नहीं है, but यहाँ पे दूध इतना रिच होता है कि आपका 1.5-2 weeks में घी बनता ही बनता है. तो इट्स लाइक अ साइकिल. मक्खन बनेगा, 2-3 दिन हम मक्खन खाएंगे, फिर वो मक्खन को गला के घी बन जाएगा. And the ghee here is cooked with, my mom-in-law cooks, when she makes ghee, she puts some lemon leaves into it. So it basically takes away that ghee ki jo heek hoti hai na, that goes away because of the lemon leaves. And this is lovely. Okay, by the way, let me tell you a secret. Okay, Sadaf, this one you will love. These nimbu ke patte aapko jahan se bhi mile, next time you make ghee, or just make this, or just fry nimbu ke patte in ghee, crush it up, add little bit of mirchi and namak, and then mix this with ghee rice and eat it. Those nimbu ke patte, mama used to cook it in the ghee. It used to cook like, jab tak aapka ghee ban jata hai, wo fry hote rehte, so they become crisp and they have that citrusy flavor.
Wow.
And mama used to chuck them out. I saw them and I was like, Mom, let me try something. So uska fir ab main un patton ka namak banati hu.
All right. I will ask my sabzi bhaiya to send me give me some nimbu ke patte. Like nimbu bahut le liya, patte la ke do mujhe. But the two things you mentioned, of course, about make millets great again, and usse pehle I wanted to highlight this as well. We could also start another hashtag, which is #taste. #travel to taste. That was very beautifully said.
Absolutely.
Travel to taste. So travel to taste now bring me to my other thing that I was discussing with you as well. You're sitting in Uttarakhand and you are also, I believe, doing something. I mean, of course, other things, but making people travel to Uttarakhand. And then there was also something happening in Mumbai.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't want to spoil and let people know from my mouth. Let's let the horse speak. I don't know if that's a phrase.
Thanks, Thanks for calling me a horse. Like, बस यही बचा था लाइफ में.
उसका क्या होता होगा? From horse's mouth को क्या बोलते होंगे? Let the horse.
कुछ और कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री सोच लेते ना यार. अपने ही कॉम्प्लीमेंट्स तुम अपने ही को देते रहना, किसी और को मत दियो.
आधे कॉम्प्लीमेंट मेरे खुद के लिए हैं.
हाँ वही तो, बाकी सबको घोड़ा गधा बोलते रहो तुम.
Let the woman in charge speak about what are these online and offline tours. ये better रहेगा.
So, no, I think you should leave the first one in, including my comments about Ghoda Gada. Please.
सब रहेगा जनता के लिए.
Okay, so I forgot the question. What am I up to? So two things. Okay, travel to taste. If we're looking at #travel to taste, one idea came out of the fact that we are stuck at home and we can't really get out, and that's still going to maybe continue for a bit in some parts. So the first one is the Sunday Mumbai Curry project that I'm doing. This is in partnership with No Footprints Explorers, which is a company based in Bombay. I've known them for a very long time. I've worked with them on some of my on-ground culinary tours. And Harshvardhan is one of the most amazing, fun people to talk to, because he just puts so much effort and passion into showcasing Mumbai and other destinations that he works with. Now, we did a spice episode a few months ago. So the idea started there that I'd love to package up Mumbai's flavors in some way. And then in July, I did the Uttarakhand's Culinary Spice Box fundraiser, where it went really well. People loved the idea of getting a box of ingredients to cook along with you when you're doing an online workshop, as opposed to just watching someone talking on the camera. So from that idea, from those two things came this idea of doing, this idea of doing this Mumbai curry project, where what we've done is we're supporting a small legacy business in Bombay called Kamkar Brothers, Kamkar Masala. And they've been around for generations. They are the repository of family recipes of masalas from different communities of Bombay, the Boris, the Parsis, the Muslims. People come there, they have this parchi, which has all the spices. So if you go Sadaf and you want to make your garam masala, you just have to fill in your quantities in that list. वो निकालेंगे, उसको रोस्ट करेंगे, पाउडर करके आपको पकड़ा देंगे.
Oh wow, brilliant.
So is what they've done over the years is they've kept all these recipes that have come from different places, and they've got their own signature masalas for different community curries. So anyone who signs up for that, anyone who signs up for that gets a box with 5 spice blends. And in November, second half of November, first half of December, over 4 weekends, we will be doing these cooking sessions, culinary workshops, where we will use these spices to make classic curries of that community.
Wow.
If the Naan Curry podcast would like to come on board and have some fun, we can send you boxes.
I am surely going to come on board. Masale chahiye.
They're always up for fun.
So that's one, right? Which
Yes.
is the online
Which is this
masale
stay in what I call armchair cooking and travel. एक जगह में बैठो, अपने घर से दुनिया ट्रैवल करो, किचन से दुनिया ट्रैवल करो,
किचन से किंगडम तक, किचन से किंगडम तक.
ये आज तो हैशटैग की फैक्ट्री बन गया है यार. अर्चित
आज हमें टैग सब हैशटैग एवरीथिंग.
So second one.
अब भांग की बात करिए तो हैश तो आएगा ही. Sorry.
देख लो. You think I am the one?
एक से बढ़ के एक. Okay. So second one, travel to taste. This is actual travel to taste. So after 20 years of researching and documenting and chronicling Uttarakhand food and doing pop-ups in Bombay and everything, I partnered with a very old, very good friend of mine from the travel space. His name is Savio Pereira. And he has he's launched a new company called Finest Journeys of India. And through this, we want to do very bespoke travel experiences. So I will be leading on the culinary experiences that we do. And for the first time ever, I am hosting a Uttarakhand culinary experience where people can sign up and travel here. This is 8th to 12th of November. People can sign up and travel here for a 4-night, 5-day deep dive into Uttarakhand cuisine. So, we most likely have that Kachmoli experience. There'll be Garhwali Thali, Kumaoni Thali, and a bunch of other things to showcase the food and culture of Uttarakhand the way I know and love it.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. So, and both the links to both these events are going to be in our show note. तो जिनको भी जाके मुंबई और उत्तराखंड के दर्शन करने हैं, प्लीज उस लिंक पे क्लिक करें एंड रजिस्टर योरसेल्फ जल्दी बिकॉज सीट्स तो लिमिटेड ही होते हैं मेरे ख्याल से.
हाँ, बहुत, बिकॉज अभी विद कोविड प्रोटोकॉल्स एंड एवरीथिंग, प्लस टू बी एबल टू गिव पर्सनल अटेंशन, we won't take more than a certain number of people.
बचपन में ना एक हमारे घर के पास सिनेमा हॉल हुआ करता था, तो टिकट विकेट बेच जाते थे उसकी, मतलब बिकॉज एक ही 2 सिनेमा हॉल था, 2 सिनेमा हॉल थे वहां पर. एक सिनेमा हॉल था जिसमें कि विच वाज फैमिली सिनेमा हॉल, और दूसरा सिनेमा हॉल था वो भी फैमिली सिनेमा हॉल था, लेकिन फैमिली के हर एक मेंबर अलग अलग वक्त पे जाते थे उस सिनेमा हॉल में. तो मतलब एक में अडल्ट फिल्म चलती थी, एक में नॉर्मल फिल्म चलती थी. तो जो नॉर्मल फिल्म वाले के में सीट भर जाती थी, तो अक्सर छोटे शहरों में क्या होता है, वो लाइक अरे कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, टेंशन नहीं लेना है, हम अपने घर से सीट लेके आएगा. तो पीपल ब्रिंग देयर ओन चेयर, कुर्सी, प्लास्टिक की कुर्सी लाके बैठ जाते. तो अनलेस यू वांट टू, अदर्स वांट टू डू दैट,
नहीं हो सकता है.
नहीं हमारा गांव ही अच्छा था भाई. कुर्सी उर्सी लेके बैठ जाते थे.
देखो आप चेयर ला सकते हो पर आपको मैं नहीं मिलूंगी. प्रॉब्लम वो है.
फिर तो फंस जाएंगे. कोई बात नहीं, पहले रजिस्टर कर लेगा. And with that, we are towards the last segment of our podcast.
Rushina, you write about spice, so we have to talk about something very spicy, which is our underrated, overrated segment. And this is our last segment before we end. So tell us, and feel free to restrict yourself to Pahadi cuisine or all food. Which are your underrated and overrated food items?
Or the ingredient.
Also.
Well, one thing that I think is really overrated is this whole concept that, masala is this gourmet, exotic thing that only specific people can do. I think that concept needs to be thrown out, because if we don't learn how to keep these traditions alive, they're going to die with those specific people.
Correct.
Another thing that I think is really overrated is the concept of secret recipe. Like, dude, आपकी अगर सीक्रेट रेसिपी है तो वो आपके साथ सीक्रेट ही रह के चली जाएगी, क्योंकि हमको तो आपने बताया नहीं है. And food is for sharing. So yeah, big peeves. The other thing is, and it's not a specific food, but it's the way we do certain things. This exaggeration, like I was saying earlier, of like, कि पहाड़ी खाना क्या है तो stinging nettle को लेके पूरा sensation कर दो. यार, stinging nettle is an important part of our diet. It used to be, this region was not a very well-off region. So you supplemented your diet with whatever you could find. तो चलते फिरते अगर आप खेत से घर आ रहे थे और आपको सिसुनाक का साग दिख गया, which is what stinging nettle is called, you picked up some and you took it home and you made a sabji and you added it to your meal that day. And it's very high. It's a superfood. Stinging nettle is a superfood. So it's high in certain kinds of nutrition, and which is why it's on the plate. But it's not there because, we are sort of doing something heroic by taking stinging nettle and, overcoming the sting of the nettle to eat the food wala seeds. It's not like that. So I think this caricature of cuisines, of looking for these sensational things to market a cuisine, I think we need to stop doing that. I think we need to bring out the nuances of a cuisine in all of its glory.
I mean, that is fair. I think we, of course, is a stereotyping whole place or the cuisine fair. And with that, overrated. That was underrated. What's the overrated?
That was overrated.
Underrated. अरे इंग्लिश कमजोर है हमारी भाई, है तो बिहार से ही ना.
Before you talk about underrated, I want to say that this is the way you explain. That's brilliant. Typically, people just come and say, "Oh, dal chawal is overrated," but I absolutely love that you explain concepts which are food. So I'm looking forward to your underrated as well.
Well, I think one of the most underrated things is dal. Like, we don't appreciate what dal is. I mean, आज पूरी दुनिया plant-based protein के पीछे भाग रही है. हम तो पूरी, like, जब से हमारी existence हुई है, dal has been part of our existence. And, even cuisines that are dependent on more mutton and fish still eat dal. Yeah? Nobody eats mutton and fish every day. You still have dal. I mean, you might have like a dal gosht perhaps, but dal is on the plate of every Indian today. Another thing that I think is extremely underrated, and I can go on forever on dal, so I'm stopping there. Maybe you want to do an episode on dal later on.
Dal only.
Yeah,
only
absolutely. I have 2 years of research I can share with you.
We'll do another one.
Yeah. And the other thing I think is highly underrated is khichdi. Khichdi, like some people will perceive khichdi as sick man's food. And I think 3-4 years ago, there was a proposition for khichdi to be made a national dish. And there was a lot of fights between people. I know I fought with a whole bunch of people because I was like, it has all the makings of a national dish. And people were like, "नहीं, वो तो बीमारों का खाना है. How can it be national dish? Biryani should be national dish." I said, "How many people eat biryani on a daily basis?"
Hey, how many people eat khichdi on a daily basis?
No, but the thing is, Sadaf, khichdi, Indian cuisine evolution-wise, khichdi has prevailed. It started with the root of Indian cuisine.
Yes.
It traveled across as Indian cuisine spread across the Indian map as we know it today. The concept of khichdi traveled. You have so many types of khichdi. It's the most easy to do, right? Dal and rice is always in your kitchen. It requires it's a no-brainer to cook it. उसमें घी पड़ती है, मसाले पड़ते हैं. All the good things of Indian cuisine are going into that pot of khichdi. And it's part of your social calendar as well. So you have khichdi as your first food that is given to a child. It's also part of your morning ceremony. So haldi bagair ki khichdi banti hai when someone passes away in the family. And Sankrant across the country is celebrated with khichdis of different kinds.
And just to add on to that, and I was told that in Rampur, Nawab Sahab loved his khichdi so much that वहाँ पे खिचड़ी competition हुआ करता था. And the people who win the challenge, उनको ना ऐसे विलायत भेजा जाता था पढ़ने के लिए fully sponsored कि आप और पढ़ के आइए और अच्छे खाने पढ़ के आइए आप. So खिचड़ी.
ये कब होता था?
ये नवाब साहब के टाइम पर.
Like it's part of the history.
नवाब रजा मीर के टाइम पर.
Okay. हाँ. Wow.
And dal and rice mixed together is also complete protein. Like the amino acids that are missing
absolutely
in dal are present in rice.
Absolutely. Plus all the functional aspects. So your khichdi will have different ingredients coming in. Like if someone has an upset stomach, you'll put more hing. If somebody's got a cold or a fever in the monsoons, you'll do khichdi with pepper or ginger in it. Here in Garhwal on Sankrant Day, we make a khichdi with udad ki dal, and it is mind-blowing.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah, that last question before we wrap up. क्या आपको वड़ा पाव पसंद है?
Of course.
हाँ, ठीक है, बस यही जानना था. यही जानना था.
किसको नहीं पसंद है यार?
I know, इसको हम रील बनाएंगे इंस्टाग्राम पर डालने के लिए कि किसको पसंद नहीं है वड़ा पाव. ये वाले इंसान को.
I'll tell you, I don't like it, and Nandita here doesn't like it. So I have some company.
Why do you not like it?
Otherwise, मुझे bully करता रहता है हर बार.
Why do you not like it?
I'm not a fan of maida or potatoes that much, and not a fan of them together for sure.
पर्सनल वेंडेटा है भाई साहब का पर्सनल वेंडेटा और कुछ है.
और एक बात बता अर्चित, आप हो कहाँ से?
बिलेफ से आया बड़ा.
Sorry, मेरा इंटरनेट चला गया.
I said where?
पंजाब.
हाँ, सब आंसर उधर ही
पंजाबी but I'm living गुड़गांव.
आया बड़ा.
आंसर मिल गया. बस ये जो वड़ा पाव है ना.
For 4 years, and I studied in front. My college had mithi bai vada pav in front of. I've tasted the best vada pav, supposedly.
Well, I won't fight with
few
you.
of the best vada pavs.
But vada pav is good. It's not like
हम एक काम करते हैं, अभी दुकान बढ़ाते हैं क्योंकि अभी अर्चित पुरी का बैप्टिज्म होगा अभी. और दुकान बंद करके मिलते हैं अगले एपिसोड पर.